So welcome to the show. Now on this video, I'm doing it a little bit different and I want to talk about food waste. Food waste is a really big problem, and on this video what I'm trying to do is show you how you can minimize food waste, and most importantly how you can take advantage of buying locally produced ingredients. Now I'm going to show you how to make a meal, a goat curry meal with rice. But before that, I'll actually take you on a journey on how I buy my ingredients, what I consider, and also when cooking, how do you repurpose food? You know, sometimes you have leftover food and end up throwing it away. So how do you reduce that? The whole idea is to try and minimize all that wastage, because when you think about it, it's like you're throwing away money because you actually bought the ingredients. So as I share all these tips, I hope this is something that you'll actually start using today. So the first thing when it comes to shopping is to do a list. We all know that. But the most important thing about the list, it actually should be based on something. Now, today I'm going to make a goat curry, some rice, and some salad. So I know you should know how much of each you need. It also should be determined by the number of people that you're actually going to cook for. So the most important thing is to know how much food you're cooking, as in how many people you're cooking for, and then make your list. Now the other thing about the shopping list is actually should be based on what you already have. If you're going to buy tomatoes, you need 5 kgs of tomatoes. Know how much you have in your fridge or in your pantry or wherever you have them, so that you don't buy 5 kgs of tomato and you probably already have 3 kgs left. Even when somebody, let's say your house manager, is telling you what to buy, or even for me, when my wife is telling me what to buy, I always ask the question of how much is there? Because if you don't know how much is there, anything, it can be sugar, it can be, you only need to buy what you need. So I'll do my list and then we'll actually go for the shopping. And again, we're actually buying from my local shop, the shop near me, the small supermarket near me. And it's all about buying local, so that you actually build your small economy within your neighborhood. So the one important tip that I need to explain to you is what I was doing is, for example, the rice, buy the Pishori rice. Pishori rice is local. We also want to promote our local farmers. So this is grown locally as opposed to the basmati rice. Basmati rice is actually from either India or Pakistan. It's not that it's bad, but if you're going to buy local, go even to the product itself. For the coconut milk that I actually picked, I actually went for this brand because it's actually also Kenyan. So whenever you have that opportunity to buy something that is local, it's something that is good. You see with this one has 2 different sizes. There's a bigger one and a smaller one. Now one is cream, one is milk, but the sizes will matter. So if you're not going to make a lot of food, just buy the small one. Or if you're going to buy something like this that is big, try and look for something that has a lid, so that when you actually store it in the fridge, it actually not go bad. So those are tips that you need to consider when doing the shopping. So when it comes to fresh produce, the most important thing is freshness. I'd mentioned this earlier. Buy whatever you need for either what you're cooking or for, let's say, 2 days, 3 days, because you can always come back for fresh rather than having too much and then it goes bad, whether it's in the fridge or wherever you store your produce. So the most important thing is identify where you buy your fresh produce and then keep buying as you need it to avoid wastage. Now it's time to cook, and what is again most important is the recipe and the ingredients that we actually bought. The first thing you want to do is to prepare the ingredients, chop the onions, chop the tomatoes, then put them aside, and then when it starts to cook, it's actually with the onion with a little bit of oil and you cook the onion until it starts to brown, and at that point you will add the curry powder. Now the curry powder is determined, the amount is actually determined by how much of the curry taste you want. If you want it a little bit spicy, you can add more. Remember, you're also going to add coconut cream, so whatever seems to be like a lot will be toned down by the cream that we will add. Now, another important thing after as you're cooking is that you will also add the tomatoes once the spice has cooked. That is really important. You want the spice to cook, add the tomatoes. Now, you may be wondering why I'm using an electric cooker. Actually, I've done a video about this particular cooker, so you can check it out on the link that I'll put on the description of this video. Now, you want the tomato to start cooking until it's soft if you're using a pan, but on this case I'm actually adding the meat after adding the tomatoes, because I let the meat sit on top of the tomato and onion mixture so that it continues to cook slowly. So this is an electric cooker. When you cover it, that cooking process is still controlled, so the water will actually start coming out from the meat, and you don't need to add any water. And then after about 15 minutes is when you can actually start stirring, because by that time the tomato will be cooked. And when you stir, you want all the meat to be fully cooked, so that is really important. After that part is done, now the next step you want to do as the meat is cooking is to add the coconut. Now, the good thing about the coconut cream or milk, you can always add it during the cooking process, as opposed to like cooking cream. Cooking cream, you usually add it towards the end, but you add the cooking cream to your taste, and then keep tasting to determine how much more you need depending on the coconut cream you're using. And once you're satisfied with the taste, let it continue simmering until the meat is soft. So when it comes to repurposing this meal after it's cooked, you can actually add coriander when you're reheating it. It will give it a very different taste, and that's another new meal altogether, and a way of repurposing the food, and again reducing any wastage that you may feel that this food is the same. So that's another tip you need to take home. When it comes to the salad part, it's another way of using vegetables in a different way. It can be fruits that maybe you have excess of. Instead of waiting for them to ripen and then maybe go bad, you can use them as a salad. So you chop the avocado and the mango into equal sized pieces, and then to make it interesting and to give it some flavor, I'm going to chop the onions into small pieces, as well as red bell peppers to give it some color. And then this will actually give it some crunch to the salad, and give it an interesting texture. I'll finish it off with is a squeeze of lemon juice. Lemon juice will help protect the avocado from going dark or black, and it will also give it flavor. Don't forget to season as your seasoning taste, and then finish it off with chopped coriander, and that's the salad. So now we're about to eat, but I have some guests, two friends of mine, and they're actually representing you who is watching. I want to get a little bit of information on what challenges that they have at home when it comes to food waste. I'll start with Beatrice. What is your biggest challenge with food going bad, whether it's raw or cooked?
My challenge is at times I put food, raw, fresh food in the
like vegetables.
Fridge. Yes, like vegetables, like tomatoes, and they go bad, and yet I've put them in the fridge.
Okay.
What is it that I'm doing wrong?
So one thing, even when you say that, because even I have the same problem at home, is when you buy too much vegetables. First of all, usually our fridges are not too big. And this is, I'm also coming to you, the response that I'm giving you is also based on what we do on a commercial kitchen. Because if you don't do that, if you don't arrest waste, you lose. And the same concept should be at home. When you buy too much let's say tomatoes, perfect example. If you found them in an offer, you go to a supermarket, they're a good offer. Buy green ones, and which are not ripe, and the ripe ones. So the ripe ones, you'll use them in the next 2-3 days. And then the green ones, put them in the fridge while they're still green, and then let them be in the fridge, as opposed to buying them when they're already ripe. That will help you when you do not go bad before you use them. Alternatively, if you can, just buy whatever you can use for about 3 days, because the supermarket is always having fresh tomatoes, you can always go back. In case you have too much and you feel, let's say your mom has brought you some, yes, I know that's an issue. You can, if they're all ripe, one thing I've seen, I've tried some time back and it worked, I put them in the freezer when they are really ripe, so that the next time I'm going to cook, you just remove them from the freezer. Now, you can't make kachumbari with those tomatoes, but good thing, the way you freeze them, they will still be maintain the fresh, and then when you cook them, they'll be soft, so you can easily chop them up and cook them into a stew. Do not buy, especially perishables, too much. Don't buy too much of it. Buy, even the maximum is for a week, and then have a list. Know how much you need. You don't need to buy 10 kgs if you're going to use 4 kgs.
So does that mean even in a refrigerator, the way I find them having different compartments?
Yes.
There is a place for veggies, there is a place for fruits.
Yes.
What is the science behind that?
Well, especially greens don't like fridge. It's about 4 to 5 degrees Celsius. That's the ideal fridge temperature. That is good for milk, meat, cheese, and everything. But for vegetables, it requires about 8 degrees. And that's why they are put on the bottom compartment, covered. It is not a direct cold circulation, so that temperature is a little bit warmer than the rest of the fridge. When you put greens, especially on top, like near where the fan is, they start turning like they are cooked dark. Yes, because greens don't like very cold temperature. So goes back to my point of, if you don't need the greens, you don't have the space to store them in the fridge, don't buy them today, buy them tomorrow when you're going to cook them. That makes sense?
Yes.
And then you reduce the waste.
Maybe you can explain for us, when it comes to visitors at home, we find a big challenge, especially when it comes to what to cook in the menu and also the quantities. So maybe you can give us a hint on how to go about it so that we can avoid wastage. You find that at the end of the ceremony event, you have so much food leftover
thrown, that is not even the one that is consumed.
So maybe you can assist us on how to go about that.
So first thing, when it comes to leftover, there's a way you can use leftover food so that it's not a waste. One good thing when you have such a situation, if you have dogs, they will enjoy. So what if you don't? My take when it comes to food and cooking, make it simple. When you have there's no need to have a buffet of so many varieties of food, and then you give people too many options. The more options you give them, they will want a little bit of everything on the plate, and they will end up not eating everything. So reduce the number of options. Have 2 starches, have 2 meats, and 1 vegetable. And as opposed to having 3 starches, 4 different types of meat, 2 vegetables, 4 salads. All that food cannot fit in one stomach. And the way I usually look at it, when you're eating at home, when you're preparing food, we usually have a starch, a vegetable, and a protein. We don't usually have choices.
Variety.
So why do you go, even you when you go to visit, it doesn't make sense to have so much. So if you are conscious about less waste, it starts from there. Like we talked about the produce, just buy enough for what you're going to cook. If you're not sure, use a recipe. The purpose of a recipe is to give you guidelines of how much onion, how much tomato versus the meat. Let's say if you're making a stew, so that you don't put too much. Okay. So and recipes, you know about my recipes that I do online. I share the recipes, and it's about the ratio of this to this to this to make that dish. And then and when you have less food, people will actually enjoy the food. Why? Because you have put all your efforts into that small amount of food in terms of variety, as opposed to having a pilau, a rice. You will not be able to hack it. You're not even an expert of doing chapatis, and yet you're trying to cook chapatis. You see, don't put them there. If you're good at making rice, make it the best rice you can make so that people will enjoy. And then that will actually reduce the waste. So at this time I'm ending the video, and I want you who is watching to give me feedback about the recipe when you get it right. But most importantly, let me know what challenges do you get at home or even at place of work, if you're working in a restaurant, that it's hard for you to minimize the food waste. Don't forget that this video is also brought in collaboration with the World Fair Trade Organization, WFTO, Africa and Middle East, whereby they're all about promoting buying local and sustainable products.